Good morning. On behalf of the Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram, it is my honor and privilege to invite you all to the fifth lecture in our series on prana as the life breath of sadhana, theoretical foundations across traditions. Uh, Welcome back to those who have been joining us in this series, and a special welcome to those of you attending a Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram event for the first time. By way of introduction to those who are joining us anew, Krishnamacharya Yoga Mandiram was founded in 1976 by Sri T.K.V. Desikachar, son and disciple of Sri Tirumalai Krishnamacharya, a pioneering foundational figure in the history of yoga in modern and contemporary India. The Mandiram is based in Chennai and offers postgraduate diploma courses in yoga teaching, therapy, and healing chants. We also offer therapy, one-on-one customized yoga therapy, which has been offered to over 100,000 care seekers in the past decades, spanning conditions from skeletal-muscular, cardiorespiratory, mental health, women's issues, and so on. You're invited to visit our website, kym.org, and also our various social media handles, where you'll find information about our various activities besides teaching and therapy, also chanting, publications, and research. Speaking of research, the KYM undertakes applied as well as textual research. And one of the textual research resources widely and fondly used by students and researchers is KYM Yoga Vaisharadi, which is a repository of primary texts as well as commentaries on various key topics in yoga. This year, beginning March, the KYM has been offering a number of events on prana and pranayama, which have fundamental central significance in the theory as well as practice of yoga. We began with a 5-week online guided workshop series called the Yoga of Prana, which is taught by senior KYM mentors, teachers, therapists. And this had an encyclopedic coverage of prana and pranayama in praxis, starting with how breath and movement are integrated in the KYM tradition, moving on to specific techniques of pranayama, shitali, nadi shodhana, and so on, nuances of ratios, bandhas, and eventually integration with mantra, bhavana, and application in ritual contexts as well as in therapy. This series was a precursor to a 2-day international conference on prana and pranayama, which was conducted in Chennai. And this featured speakers on yoga, from yoga, Ayurveda, biomedical engineering, and also in keeping with the Mandiram's twin emphasis on applied and textual research, also had a number of speakers on Veda, Vedanga, and Dharmashastra aspects of prana and pranayama. The ongoing series, it continues this learning experience. Sri Tirumalai Krishnamacharya, while being rooted in a Vaishnava tradition, also taught without any reservation seekers from a variety of traditions. And in this spirit of raising awareness about the variety of traditions in the Bharatiya Jnana Parampara, this series on prana as the life breath of sadhana has been featuring speakers representing a variety of traditions. We have had speakers from Shaiva, Shakta, Shri Vaishnava traditions. And today it is our pleasure to invite once again Shri Ramachandra Beth Mangalkar, who has also been a speaker at the conference where he spoke on the topic Hari Sarvottama Vayu Jivotama, grace of Shri Hari and Bhagavan Vayu on sadhana and sadhika. So here he will be speaking to us today on the Prana Sutra of Bannanje Govindacharya. As mentioned earlier, this series has been um, this series has featured a variety of texts, and today we are going to have a fairly recent text from the Madhva Sampradaya by a scholar from the 20th century, Bannanje Govindacharya. Before we begin to listen to the lecture Ramachandraji has to share, it's my pleasure to introduce the speaker for today. Just a moment, please. And in the meantime, I would request all participants, all attendees to please stay muted in the course of the lecture. And we also invite you, if possible, to turn on your video so that we can maintain an interactive vibe. Let me introduce the speaker, Shri Ramachandra Bethmangalkar, Ram to friends, is a startup investor by profession and is deeply interested in Vedanta, yoga, Samskrita, and other ancient Indian knowledge systems. He is a student of yoga in the tradition of Sri Krishnamacharya and Vedanta in the tradition of Sri Madhvacharya. His other interests include literature, sports, music, technology, and entrepreneurship. His formal education includes engineering and business management degrees. Over to you, Ramji.
Thank you, Arvindji, and thank you, friends at KYM and everyone here. We'll start with a small chant. Om Shanno Mitra Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Bruhaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Anmamavatu Advaktaramavatu Avatu Mam Avatu Vaktaram Om Shanti 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to participants wherever you are. It's a great pleasure to be here to share this forum. Let me share my screen first. It's a great honor to be a speaker in any of the KYM forums, and especially the current series where we are talking about or understanding and studying prana and pranayama. And it's also a privilege to talk about a work and about a person that I've admired all my life and whom I consider as my Vidya Guru, Sri Bannanje Govindacharya. And this is a small, perhaps, a dakshina to him to be able to talk about him and spread his work and what he has done. We'll talk about the author, we'll talk about him and also this current work, which is called Sutras. What I'll be doing is just share a little bit about who Bannanje is. Then we'll get in directly into the Prana Sutras and what they are. So, Sri Govindacharya, as Arvindji introduced, he was one of the stalwarts or giants in the last 85 years. He lived from 1936 to 2020. The scholar par excellence. There was nothing that it seemed like was out of his reach. And as with many stalwarts and towering giants, whether it is Sri Govindacharya or whether it is Sri Deshkachar or whether it is Sri Krishnamacharya, it is very difficult to understand them. It is very difficult to understand their works. It is very difficult because the contexts are different. We are at a different level. I always think like, this is an attempt. Imagine if an ant at the bottom of a mountain were planning to describe the greatness of a mountain, how it would do. Perhaps it would be a futile attempt, but nonetheless, an attempt is being made, or we make that attempt. So it's very similar. So it seemed like there was nothing that was that he did not know. One of his claims to fame, or which was he didn't claim, everybody else around him and people who knew him said that his Sanskritam was of the highest order that we have seen in the last several hundred years in the country. And the reason for this is when we go deep into his works and some of his interpretations of very esoteric, Vedas and nirvachanas of the words that is coming from some very ancient texts, such as even the sutras, we'll understand why that his knowledge of Samskrita was not ordinary, not something which was gained in this lifetime, perhaps is coming from some previous lifetimes as well. There was nothing that, as I said, his areas of interest were very, very many. Obviously, grammar of Samskrita was something he knew at the back of his palm. Then he also knew Tarka, the logic. He was a master in that, but at the same time, he always talked about how logic can be very deceptive, and there is no substitute for experience. You will always use logic to go along with the experience that we all have. Logic is not by itself the ultimate arbitrator of anything, because it is in vacuum. It is always following experience. So there was something that he cautioned everyone on how to use logic, and he was a logician to begin with, and his interest in literature also was very deep and very wide. He's composed numerous poems in Kannada, in other languages, including Samskrita. And he was very well respected by many great poets and laureates, much, much older than him. In fact, he had a very deep and fond relationship with Dara Bendre, who was one of the greatest poets of modern India. And their age difference was just too wide and too vast. But nonetheless, Bendre always respected Bannanje, and he wanted to spend more time with him. There were many others also who often said to him that they were probably very strong in Kannada language and literature, whereas Bannanje was strong in both Kannada and Samskrita. And they would often request him to give them that knowledge of Samskrita that was there in many texts, but they themselves were perhaps deprived of. So that was the kind of relationship he had, which was beyond, what we talk about Vedanta or all of, the spiritual world, but was deep into literature also, ordinary literature of the highest order. At the same time, everything that he did was self-study. Everything that he did was he learned on his own. And there were obviously, some teachers of his, but most of his knowledge was through intense self-study, starting from a very young age. He had also studied the Jaina and Bauddha texts, and also very uncommon in our tradition in India. It also deeply studied the Zend-Avestas, the Old Testaments, and other scriptures as well from many other traditions across the world. So then he was able to synthesize, he was able to understand the uniqueness of each, at the same time the difference of each one of them, and that he had said it always helped him in his the search for truth. Um, Again, his self-study and discipline was something to emulate. One of the way he started his life was, he said in many occasions that he started with Shankara's Advaita, and he was born in a very orthodox family in the South Canara region near Udupi, and the in the family which was following the Madhva tradition, but he was not compelled to follow that tradition, and neither did he want to do it himself without understanding what it is. So at a very young age, he started to explore by himself, and he got deep into the Adi Shankara's Advaita philosophy. He studied the original text of Adi Shankara and many commentaries, and after a few years, he moved on to understand Vishishta Advaita of Sri Ramanuja. Again, there he studied the source text by the Acharya himself and many commentaries and sub commentaries in that tradition. And then he came to Madhva's tradition. And he says that this journey helped him a lot. And he found his destination in the Madhva tradition, which incidentally was his tradition by birth. But then he said, why? Then he sort of reconciles the fact that why did he actually, he says that this was perhaps no coincidence that he was born in that tradition, because he said he found all the answers to his search and seeking in the Madhva tradition. But at the same time, he stayed quite very unorthodox in the sense that he did not attach himself to the orthodoxies of the tradition. He was an institution by himself. He was respected across all traditions also. But even in the Madhva tradition, the orthodoxy of the institutions of religious prominence, they respected him a lot. They sought his counsel, sought his guidance. He was a teacher to many of the swamis, and also to people and public like us. He was always accessible. So what he did was he dedicated his vast knowledge to actually just sharing it very freely and very widely. He did numerous translations of ancient texts. He composed new texts, and he gave lectures for over 35, 40 years from what I know of. There was one person who said that they had access to about 15,000 hours of his lectures, which is enormous, and it is all encompassing. And someday, if someone can index all of this and be able to just access it, it would be a great contribution. And many of such lectures were brought out in book forms by himself. And one of that is Prana Sutras. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But just to, sort of give a more complete picture, or just to tell a little bit more about this person before we move on, one of the things he always emphasized was, in Kannada, we call it Iruvudu Sampattalla, Iruvina Arivu Sampattu. That's what he used to say, which is whatever it is, it exists. Every culture has its richness, whether it's form of knowledge, whether it's form of text, whether it's form of whatever that thing that exists. He said that mere existence was not richness. He would always say you need to be aware of such existence. So I often give that example of, someone, let's say a person who is wealthy, and in the ancient days they used to hide their wealth. They would bury it in their home. They would dig up something, put it in the kitchen somewhere, and then hide it so that it's under the floor. But maybe a later generation, their kids or grandkids would not know. Now, here is the example of what he's saying. Iruvudu sampattalla, iruvina arivu sampattu. Just this person's, subsequent generations, the existence of wealth is there. I mean, but they don't know. So only when they find out that they have that wealth which is buried in their own house, then they are rich. Otherwise, they are not rich. So he used to give example always, and it is very true. In the context of what he used to say was the vastness and richness of Indian knowledge systems is where he was saying that we are not even aware, and we have moved very far away. And his own life was a small attempt to bring people of our generation or and even subsequent generations to understand the richness of the knowledge that exists in the land of Bharat. And the other axiom or his principle he would always stress was whatever he studied, whatever he did, he would always start out as a skeptic, which is to say that keep your biases out, as much as possible. Let's not be prejudiced because I am from such and such a background, I have such and such a history, and so on. He would always say, start any text keeping biases out, keeping prejudices out. And then he would quote this Upanishad, which is to say that यदेव विद्यया करोति श्रद्धया उपनिषदा तदेव वीर्यवत्तरं भवति. Would always say that whenever you know something thoroughly, before you do something, what this means is you try to know it thoroughly. You try to first understand the concepts behind it. It need not be anything related to just spirituality. It is anything to do with even material sciences or anything that we come across. It is to first know something thoroughly. Let's know it. Then the next thing is he would this what this Upanishad is saying is mere knowing is not enough. Do you believe in it? What of that knowledge appeals to you? What is it that you know now that you believe in it, that you are convinced about it or convinced of it? And then you would say apply and practice. And what this Upanishad is saying is if you do in that manner, which is to know something thoroughly and to believe in it and apply it, the Upanishad is saying, why will success not follow you? It is bound to happen. But only when there is, this disconnect between either our knowledge or our belief or our application in one or all of these, then we see that the results do not come across as we expect. And that is the problem that the ancients had identified. And they say you need to know this very well before you go on. So this is about this person. Also, I mean, as I said, he though he was from the tradition of Madhva, was very well respected by other traditions also, and for his knowledge. He was sought by the great filmmaker G.V. Iyer to do a film or movie on Sri Adi Shankara, and later on Sri Ramanuja, and later on Sri Madhva, and also on Bhagavad Gita. So all these movies that came out, I think they were all in Samskrita. And so he wrote the screenplay, the dialogues, and also the reason why he was able to do was his knowledge of each of these stalwarts was something that people respected. So he was able to provide a great insight into the lives of many of these acharyas and their works. And so just to say that his knowledge was beyond what we can probably I can communicate in a few minutes or a few words. It's only when we know about this person that we know what his contributions are. But coming to this text about the prana and prana sutras, I will come to that. But before that, this is an important tenet in the tradition of Madhva, which he believed, and this is what he communicated. This is what I have learned from him, that God, as we call in any tradition, whether not just Indian tradition or any tradition, God or supreme being, and it just so happens that in the Indic tradition, we have several names, and one of the foremost names is Narayana. And the texts call this God or supreme being as Uttama Prana. And when we come to this concept of prana, we'll understand it says he is the ultimate prana. And then there is another deity called Vayu, a very high ranking deity. Just, in the hierarchy of deities, Lakshmi and Narayana, are high. And then Saraswati, Brahma, Saraswati, Vayu and Bharati. So Vayu is in just the third level after Narayana and Lakshmi. He's at that level along with Brahma. He's a very high ranking deity. He's called Madhyama Prana because Uttama Prana is Narayana already. But given in context of all other life forms, jivas, that is you and me and all the other life forms, he is called Mukhya Prana. He is foremost among all other life forms, but he is one step below Narayana, which is why he is Madhyama Prana. And us, all of us who carry these life forms that we have, we are Adhama Pranas, or lower level forms of prana. Or we are also called prani. All the animals, all the living things that have prana in them are also called prani. So the reason why we are prani is because is in us and all life forms like us. And who is this prana? In the tradition of Madhva, this is an entity which is a deity. That is, it is in us. He's a deity to be worshipped and to be sought after, to seek his blessings. So, and another aspect of the tradition is prana cannot exist without Narayana, which is Mukhya Prana. His own existence is incomplete, or he cannot exist without Narayana's grace. And so are we. We cannot exist without Narayana's grace and also Mukhya Prana's grace, because we need to be living, to be breathing, which is him only. It is his manifestation is what is prana. So we cannot exist without prana and Narayana. This is the idea in the, a very important idea in the Madhva tradition. And the picture on the right shows you how that is conceptualized. Mukhya Prana is always at the feet of Narayana, asking his permission to carry out whatever the Lord wants to be achieved. It is the will of the Lord that is achieved through Mukhya Prana, and he's always at the service of Mukhya Prana. And both Narayana and Mukhya Prana, they take 5 principal forms. Many of you may know it. There are other deities who are known to take 5 forms or many forms. 5 in fact, Rudra or Shiva is also has 5 principal forms. There could be many more, hundreds and thousands more. But there is this idea in traditions, and this is all coming from the text, that the 5 principal forms of Narayana are Aniruddha, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, and the Mula Rupa Narayana himself. Same here, Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana, Samana are the 5 forms of Mukhya Prana. Now we also know these as airs or Vayu. When we look at the text of Prana and Pranayama, these are the 5 Vayus, principal Vayus, and there are 5 other Upapranas that are there, and several other. In fact, there are many more, but these 5 are the principal forms. So the structure of the Prana Sutras is, you will see later why I'm talking about these 5 principal forms here. And then Sri Bannanje says that understanding prana and Narayana is often beyond the scope of ordinary humans. They are very, very high ranking, in the sense that it is beyond the grasp of some of our minds, which we are having some limitedness in our minds, and it takes years and years of study to open our minds and try to understand concepts such as these. But he does say that just thinking about them is enough to start the purification process of our minds, and we'll be able to proceed further in our journeys. Let's continue our journey. And so everything that I have in these slides and what I'm saying is essentially what is in this book called Prana Sutras. This is in Kannada, and my work is only to just communicate the essence in English. So all the sentences, all the words that are here in these slides are directly from here. I've tried to keep it as authentic to the text that we have of Prana Sutras by him. So these words, these things are directly in the text. These are not mine, although I believe in it. These are not mine, these are his. So he says that breath is life and breath is good health. And one who breathes well is disease free. And one who breathes well can live a long and healthy life. And I have many personal experience about this, and I can't but say that these are simple sentences, but they're very profound as far as my own experiences is going. Breathing and having a good life, they are highly correlated. And he says that pranayamas is the keys to such a long and healthy life. He introduces this as a technique for long and healthy life. And then he says that all that knowledge that is there in the text, they are, it's spread in various different texts. Obviously, the Hatha Yogic texts have a lot of knowledge about prana and pranayama. There are many Upanishads, and there are many Puranas have these ideas. So what he wanted to do was bring many of these knowledge that exist in various texts in one place and give it in a form which is ready reckoner for anyone who wishes to know about prana or pranayama. And then he could have written it in a form which is a prose form, like in a long essay form or a book or something. What he decided to do next was very interesting. He says that the idea of sutras is something that the modern literature is losing and has lost it pretty much completely. He wanted to just for the sake of it, he said, let me compose this in the sutra form so that the modern generation know that it is not that difficult, that if you can actually create this form of literature. It's not that difficult. And then he goes on to compose this in sutra. And so as you will see, what a sutra I'll come to that. But it's a very concise form, just like the bullet points that you're seeing in the screen. But then you're also hearing me talk a lot about some of these bullet points that are there. So you need the context for a sutra, something that is before and something that is after. And we'll come to that. So now for pranayama itself, the first step, he says that this is a first step towards dhyana also. In addition to saying that it is something we all need to know because of to live a good, healthy life. He also says that this is his first step towards dhyana. And he says that there is no spiritual development without it. He is very emphatic, saying we cannot proceed without this particular practice in our daily lives. Whether it is a part of a ritual or not, it is immaterial. But having the time to just practice pranayama, he says that without it, our spiritual development cannot go far. And whatever rituals that we do, and many of the traditions have daily rituals, whether it is the Sandhya Vandana Kriya or many other Kriyas, all of that, he says that all of those rituals will not deliver benefits unless we have good amount of pranayama in our daily routines. And as we already said, it's much needed for good and long life. And he lamented for the longest time, and every time he spoke about pranayama, he said this was the most important practice for any human being. Doesn't matter whether you're Hindu, you're a believer, non-believer, none of that. This is all about science of breathing and good life. And he says that this is one of the most important practices, but his lament or regret was this is also the most underappreciated. People don't know about it. We are not introduced to this in the right way. We are not being encouraged to apply this. And this is something he said that we are living as though the trees. He would often say that the trees also breathe, but there must be a difference between the way they breathe, the way we breathe. We need to breathe with more awareness. We need to breathe with more consciousness to go further. That's what he would say. And this is the point about life without pranayama is as good as living without prana. He would say that what are you doing? You've been given a birth. There is, you have this opportunity without thinking. You are breathing. Your muscles and all your physiology is making you breathe, but you're not aware of it. So you're not aware of prana. He would say without knowing pranayama. And he would caution that this is not just about nostril controls or positions to hold and types of techniques on how much from where you should breathe, where you should exhale. It's not about that. He would say that comes as part of practice, but essentially you need to get the idea of pranayama as something which is essence for good health and spiritual practice. This was his primary point. And he would end this preface to this sutras by saying, this is a must know for anyone who breathes. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are, what you are, doesn't matter. Anyone who breathes for a long, good, healthy life, this is a must know. And then he says, hence he's composing this knowledge in the sutra form. And in this text, especially, there is nothing about the tradition of Madhva other than the fact that the deity prana is treated as a very high ranking deity. Other than that aspect which I touched upon, there is nothing about the tradition of Madhva here in this work. It's all about the science of breathing. We see many of these in other texts also, which will be very clear as we go through. Now I talked about the sutra literature. We'll just very quickly, it's not to take too much time. Sutra, according to the Vayu Purana, it says Alpaksharam Asandigdham Saravat Vishwatomukham Astobham Anavadyam cha Sutram Sutravido Vidhuhu. Basically, if you translate it into English, something which is concise, it's not, it's for the brevity of, we will see why the brevity is important. We'll know that. It has to be concise, but it has to be precise. It has to convey the essence. At the same time, it should not be of a narrow scope. The scope has to be broad of what you're saying. Then you cannot use filler words or filler sentences just to make it interesting or sound. It has to have meaning. There is a purpose for every sutra. It cannot be just to fill something. And then lastly, of course, is it has to be accurate. It has to be true. And these are the characteristics of sutras according to the learned. So this is a form of literature used to convey vast amount of information with as few words as possible. As I said, this is akin to the bullet points in any presentation, including this one. And you see, you're already seeing how much of words I'm filling in. If I were to just leave these slides with you with these bullet points, the meaning that you can take away from that is very limited in my view. Whereas with the commentary that I'm using to elaborate on each of these bullets, you have a much better idea of what is it that I'm trying to convey. It's exactly the same with the sutra literature. And one of the things advantages is it's easily memorizable, and it aids practitioners because you can carry vast amounts of information in few words. And the way the mind works is it triggers the moment you know a sutra, you know its meaning, you know the context, you know what it really means. Just the trigger word is important. Just the what we are now calling in the age of artificial intelligence, the thing about prompts, when they say you tell chat gpt this, what is the technical term people use is the prompt. The moment you give a prompt, then the system is going to give you pages and pages, if you want. It's exactly the same. So you can think of the sutra as the prompt, but then the knowledge is all within us, so it comes out. So it's easy recall. That was the form of literature that ancients in India created. Many sutras, many ancient texts are in the sutra form. All the darshana literature is in the sutra form. And one of the things is it requires, as you're realizing, that one requires a commentary to these sutras. If you just have a list of bullet points, it's hard to know what the author really intended to convey. So it requires commentaries to interpret the sutras, unlike a prose or an essay where you can be a lot more explanatory. Whereas the sutra requires commentaries, and hence you have a lot of commentaries, even for the Vedanta sutras of Badrayana, which is where the Brahma Sutras have commentators like Adi Shankara, Sri Ramanuja, Sri Madhva, because the original Sutrakara, the Badrayana himself, did not write a commentary and give it to us. He just gave the sutras. And now what he really meant is when people started to decode the meaning. Very similarly, even for in the case of Prana Sutras also, fortunately for us, he said, I'm going to write the commentary. What I really mean to say is I will also write the commentary and give it to you guys. So what he did was he did it in Samskrita, both the sutra and the commentary. And then after many years, he said it gathered dust. Somebody approached him and they said, we have a magazine publication. We'd like something to be rich content. And so he said he took it out from his shelves. It was gathering dust. And then he said, oh, okay, but this is in Samskrita. And the audience today in India are not very familiar with this language. So he translated into Kannada, and both the sutra and the commentary. and then it was later published by his own publication as this book, which is not what we are going to delve into now. So this is the concepts that are there. The sutra and the meaning is essentially a translation from Kannada into English. My limited English is what you're going to see. So the structure of the Prana Sutras is this. As we saw, Prana has 5 forms, Narayana has 5 forms. So in honor of Prana, Mukhya Prana, who has 5 forms, he says the Prana Sutras are in 5 chapters or 5 padas. And in the tradition of Madhva, it is always that Vayu and Hari are together. We pray to both Prana and Narayana together. We don't pray to Vayu without Narayana. Of course, you can always do a dhyana of Narayana without Vayu, but the tradition says that you go through Vayu. Vayu will help you get to Narayana. So we always think of them as together. So the image on the left is the artist impression of Mukhya Prana, who has these 5 forms. The 5 forms we already saw: Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana, Samana. And then the 5 forms of Narayana: Aniruddha, Pradyumna, Sankarshana, Vasudeva, Narayana. So the name he gives to each chapter is, the first chapter is called Aniruddha Pranapada. Second one is Pradyumna Panapada, Sankarshana Vyanapada, Vasudeva Udanapada, Narayana Samanapada. These are the 5 chapters. And, each chapter has a theme. The first chapter has, it's just an overview of the Prana Sutras and some basic requirements or prerequisites for pranayama. And some of these things he elaborates later in later chapters also. We'll see that. In the second chapter, it's all dedicated to just asanas, about what asanas are important for pranayama. Third chapter is where he gets into the actual practice of pranayama. And before you start pranayama practice, what is it that you need to do or don't do, and so on. The fourth one is about the pranayama techniques itself. We'll see what those techniques are: Nadi Shuddhi, Anuloma Viloma, all of that, and many benefits around it. And the last chapter he dedicates, you can see in the number of sutras that are there, the last chapter has 36 sutras, which is the highest. This is all about Kumbhaka, which is what is called as hold, whether it is hold after inhale or hold after exhale. And in all traditions, including Hatha-yogic traditions, and this is basically coming from the root, which is the Puranas and Upanishads have this, which is Kumbhaka is the most important aspect of pranayama. But you don't get there straight away. You need to gradually develop yourself and then get to Kumbhaka. And then the benefits of Kumbhaka, what Kumbhaka is, all of that is discussed in the 5th chapter. So we'll now look into each chapter, just an overview, not going into details. Only when there is something special he has mentioned or a call out, I will digress and switch to explain some of that. But what we will now do is, so one of the things in the, let me just share here. So the sutras are like this: Athato Prananama Yamaha, Purvangam Asanam. So these are the words that are there. These are the, think of it as the bullet points. What the text does not have is the swara along with it. How do you chant it? And so on. My fortunate training at KYM with the Yoga Sutras and also maybe some Purva Samskaras, I was able to look at this not as this, but with the swaras. So what I would like to do now is just chant the first chapter, first pada. I'll share the screen, you can follow, and then we'll come to this slide where. So how we chant, how to chant each of these is something, I just could not resist but put the swaras so that it helps in easy chanting. It sounds melodious according to me, and then it's easy for recall as well. So let's just switch to that. Arvindji, are we doing okay on time? Or is okay?
Yes, please carry on.
Okay. All right. Is my screen visible now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the first chapter is, as I said, Aniruddha Pranapada. The way to just, if you just hear it, you don't have to copy anything. Atha Aniruddha Pranapadaha. Om Atatha Prananamayamaha. Purvangamasanam. Shuchau deshe ashramanadi tatodhyana devagareshatu natu chakshupidane asharkare chavaluke natishite natyatape manonukule tu sarvatha na bhumau kevalayam कुशाजिन कम्बलानि यथा क्रमम् आसनमकोमलं समञ्च पूर्वादिगुत्तरा वा ध्रुवानुकूल्यात् आभ्यासपाकम् प्रसादे चाविशेषात् सिद्धिः सिद्धिः इति प्रथमो निरुद्ध Pranapadaha. This is how, if you are able to chant, and this is easy recall in my view. If you are able to do this a few times, you'll remember these much easier than just looking at the text without the notes. There is a lot of science behind this. I think this is something, a good research topic for neuroscientists as well, how these notes can actually help in memory. That's for another day. Now, coming back, so what we just chanted or what we heard, Athato Prana Nama Yamaha, and very simply it says that now, therefore, because it is extremely beneficial, and these are the words, meanings of some of these words. Atha means something, Ataha means something, and Pranayama Yamaha means something. So this is, as per his text, the meaning of this one line is now, therefore, because it is extremely beneficial, teachings about pranayama, which is a regulation of pranas, is being composed or is being, recited or chanted or whatever that we are doing about. Then second one was Purvangamasanam, says firstly asana. So what about firstly asana? So this is where the commentary is important, which is to say that asana is very important, and shauchamcha, also cleanliness. We'll come to that. I'm going to expand these two aspects a little bit. Shuchau deshe, in a clean place, especially in ashrams, riverbanks, parks, gardens, and temples. So why it is this is, so there is prana in the universe everywhere. Prana is there in food, prana is there in air, prana is there in nature, not just on earth. Prana is there everywhere. Forms of energy are manifestations of prana. But for us, for life and for living, especially in places such as ashrams where there are some sanctification, river banks, the water, the flow of water itself is bringing out the emphasis of prana. It is emphasizing that. Parks, gardens, the trees, the flowers, the fruits, they are actually accentuating or bringing the prana out. It makes us feel good. It makes our mind light. It makes our mind happy. Temples, again, because of the sanctification. So this is one of the reasons why practicing pranayama in one of these places, if you have access to these places, please do it, is what he says. Then, but not when you are suffering from eye ailments. Natu chakshu pidane. It's actually elaborated later in another chapter as to when you should not practice pranayama. You should also make sure that the ground doesn't have stones or not uneven. Asharkare chavaluke. Not to practice when it is extremely cold or extremely hot. Nati shite natyatape. In a place where the mind is relaxed. Please, when you have the mind relaxed, then you do practice pranayama regardless of all these do's and don'ts. And obviously, if it's too hot or too cold, we are not relaxed anyway, which is, it's a cause and effect there. But you cannot list out all the do's and don'ts. So this sutra, manonukule tu sarvatha, is somewhat of you can take it as the beacon, which is to say, wherever your mind is relaxed and at peace, that is the place to practice pranayama, right? And there were, previously we said some of these places have that specially ordained nature in that place itself, like a river bank or a park or a garden. So there you practice pranayama. Na bhumau kevalayam, not on the bare floor. Don't sit on the bare floor. He talks about it later that there are lots of vibrations in the ground. And when we practice pranayama, there are vibrations that are created because of the pranayama. But then these vibrations have to be in sync with each other. So the vibrations that are in the ground, on a bare ground, are not suited for the kind of vibrations that are generated when we chant, when we do practice of pranayama and all of that. So to whatever we do, it is negated by the vibrations in the ground, or if it is on the bare ground. So which is why the tradition has you put a mat, you put a a mat made of dharba grass, and then you put a cloth on top of it, or if you have an animal skin, you need to be careful with that, but if you have access to that, you can practice on that. So there are various rules given, again, in various texts, including the Bhagavad Gita. So this is just a capturing that essence, saying na bhumau kevalayam, not on the plain floor. And then he says, kushajina kambalani yathakramam. You need to put the dharba mat first, and then an animal skin, where it's usually a deer skin, and then a plain cloth, in that order. And then you practice pranayama. The effects are retained if you do it this way. If you do it any other way, we are not sure. You're not sure of the effects of this. Definitely not on the plain floor. Asana akomalam samamcha. The seat must be firm and evenly on the ground. Whatever we sit, it should not have ups and downs and so on. Your seat must be very firm and even. Purvadi Guttarava, you have to face east or the north, and he gives the reason for that is because in these directions are in sync with the North Star. So what the tradition, what the ancients believed was the journey of a jiva should be upwards, not going around. It has to go upwards towards higher universes or higher levels. So there is a higher levels and there are nether levels, and Guloka is in the middle. And now our trajectory has to be going up, not going down. And the ancients had a very good reason to say that the pull of the North Star is so strong that it has, you sit facing either east or north, it is going to pull you in this sort of a clockwise direction, but upwards. But when you face any other direction, whether it is west or south, you're not going to be pulled upwards. You are either going to just keep circling. This is not circling in a literal sense. We are not going to be turning, or we're not. This is for our evolution. This is for the jiva. This is how our progress happens. This was something the ancients had a very clear idea about. Abhyasa pakam. This is all of these do's and don'ts. Is very interesting that he says there's all of these do's and don'ts are until the practice matures and starts yielding results. So a very interesting question you might ask. What happens when the practice, after the practice matures? Should I not do all of this? It's very simple, and he very jokingly says that, well, all these do's and don'ts you will follow when you're initiated and you're in the early years. But once the practice matures, they will follow you. So you are not going to be rid of them. This is going to be part of you. It's going to be part of your practice. There's no going away from this. Initially, you're chasing them, then later they will chase you. So anyway, you're going to be part of, they're going to be part of it. Prasade chavisheshat siddhis siddhihi. When you do this, blessings of prana in all aspects, you will be there. And siddhis siddhi, pranayama is fruitful, pranayama is fruitful. He emphasizes by saying this 2 times. The reason why any word that is used in a sutra, we need to decode and see what is the meaning. If people are using it more than once, there must be a meaning for that. To emphasize the fact that there cannot be good results if we follow all these. It is going to happen. To emphasize that, it is to say that prana, he's using these words, siddhi, siddhihi. I'll just take 2 digressions on this chapter. The atha. So there are 2 athas here. There is athato, which has 2 words, atha and ataha. Atha is basically a auspicious a word. It starts with A, which is a very auspicious symbol of the Lord Himself. We call Akshara from A to Ksha. These are the Varnas in the languages, Sanskrit and many other languages. A is the first Akshara, and that also symbolizes the Supreme Being. It's a name for God or Supreme God. So there is a beginning of this text is with an auspicious beginning, is to say Atha. Ataha is what it means is because it is extremely beneficial. And there is other ideas of Atha, will come to that. So Atha first says is auspiciousness. Atha also says, now therefore, he says that now that you are ready, now that you have the eligibility, now that you are capable of doing this, let's start the practice of prana. The Ataha, which is the second Ataha, that is to say, why should I do this? Because it is extremely beneficial to it. So we also see this Athato Pranayama here, but in the Brahma Sutras, it starts with Athato Brahma Jignasa. So same two combinations are there, Atha and Ataha and Brahma Jignasa. We'll understand Brahman is the meaning of Athato Brahma Jignasa. Here it is, he's inspired by that, and he's looking at pranayama as why we are doing pranayama. And then the practice always, one of the call outs, he says this, you should be very careful in your practice of pranayama. It is to be practiced yatha yoga as applicable. And then he gives some insight saying that sometimes, you have to control your breath, or you have to bring your breath under control, just as how a mahout controls an elephant. We know this, when we are in some, let's say, blocked nostrils or something, if your teacher prescribes you, vigorous practices of, rapid inhale, exhale, then it is something like how we are trying to control the prana with a little bit of force, just like how a mahout might control an elephant, and then make sure that it doesn't go or run amok. And sometimes you have to treat it as though how you would, talk to your beloved or lover and try to convince her or him on something. So you need to cajole, you need to do, you need to apply that technique. We all know how to do that. We have done it in various instances. You have to approach prana with that kind of sensitivity. And in some cases, he says that, especially during dhyana, none of the first two will work. It has to be with reverence, surrender, complete, right? So this is what he's trying to say, that you have to apply these kinds of approaches given what the instance or situation is, and then your practices have to be adaptive based on your. So one of the things he calls out is shaucha and asana are extremely important. He emphasizes that in his commentary. He brings out again, this model of the bird is there in many texts of ancient India and the Shastras. One of the wings of the bird is shaucha, cleanliness. The other is the asana. The body of the bird is the practitioner, you, me, anybody. And then that if you have this shaucha and asana as your wings, we can fly freely in the space of pranayama. This is the way to journey around in the space of pranayama is with these two wings, which are shaucha and asana, and then the bird can fly freely. Shaucha is very two dimensions, internal and external. Internal is the kaya, vacha, and manasa, the body itself, our thoughts, our speech, our mind. This is the internal shaucha. External environment, obviously, we saw. That's the environment around. If there's a lot of noise around me, there are people, distracting our attention, so on. This is not good, conducive for asana or even pranayama, which is why external shaucha is also important. Asana is also the other wing, which is there are many seated postures, and there are 5 he talks about in the second chapter, which we'll breeze through. Having the spine erect and importance of bandhas, he introduces in the commentary for this particular sutra. We talk about bandhas later. He talks about it. He talked about the direction, how to sit and practice. Then other rangas of dhyana, he gives in the commentary, if you want to do dhyana, it's not just these, it is other rangas that we have seen in Ashtanga Yoga. I'll not get into that. But one golden rule, he says, this is mind should be at peace. When mind is at peace and mind is at ease, whatever helps you get there, do that. And that is the prerequisite for pranayama. This is the second chapter. Now, Arvindji, we continue?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. So let's get to the chanting of this, and then we'll come to this. Atha pradyumna panapadaha padma padmadhyamasanam yathanukulam yatha sukhancha पूर्वोः पादौ पद्मम् अभ्यासे व्यत्ययेन स्थिरबन्धस्यात् स्थिरकशेरुकः पार्ष्णिभ्यामुदरपीडनम् ज्ञानमुद्रा जानोपरि ब्रह्ममुद्रा वा पार्ष्ण्योरुपरि उत्तानवुपनिहितौ हस्तौ सा ऊरुसन्ध्योरन्तरापादौ स्वस्तिकम् जानोपरि हस्तौ प्रपदस्थानमङ्गुलिभिर्भद्रम् पार्ष्ण्योरुपरि पृष्ठम् पृष्ठत उत्तानौ पादौ वज्रम् पृष्ठमन्तरा पार्ष्ण्योः जानोपरि च हस्तौ अर्धपद्मं वा वीरं परिनितम्बं पादौ वा उत्तानयोरन्तरा स्फिक् शववच्चान्यदासनमासनम् इति द्वितीय प्रद्युम्नापानपादः. Let's get back to this. I'll not spend much time on this because this is all about various asanas and how to perform them. And he has given it in the sutra form. So Padmasana and many other asanas are the seated postures for pranayama. We also, yathanukulam, yathasukam. Sthirasukam asanam is something we all know. And this captures that essence, which is yathanukulam, yathasukam. Whatever is beneficial, comfortable posture for you, do it in that one. Urvo padav padmam. So now he begins to talk about the technique of Padmasana. Padmasana is one where the feet are on the thighs. Abhyaso vyatyayena. In the early days, initial days, when you're not proficient, keep alternating the legs. It's not possible to sit continuously for a very long time. So he says just keep switching your ankles, one on top of the other. So abhyaso vyatyayena sthira bandha syat sthira karerukaha, with mula bandha firmly established and spine erect. So he emphasizes this in many other lectures also in other occasions, that pranayama has to be performed always with bandhas, especially mula bandha is very important. And he says that, he cautions that without bandhas, especially mula bandha, pranayama can actually create diseases. The most common one being piles. He says if somebody he says that they are practicing pranayama and they have piles, he cautions that check whether you're performing bandha or not. So he's cautioned that in many other occasions as well. Parshnibhyam udarapidanam, heels must be pressing against the stomach. We'll just see some pictures that an artist has created for this book. Jnana mudra janupari, so how the hand should be. Brahma mudra va parshnyorupari. So you can either keep the palms on the knees like this, or it could be one on top of the other. I'll show the picture. Uru sandhyorantara swastikam. Now we come to the next asana, which is what is swastikasana and where the palm should be. I'll show the picture and then you will be able to understand. So the first one was Padmasana, where you see the feet on both feet up, and the first one is the Jnana Mudra. The middle picture is where the Padmasana is in the Brahma Mudra, where your palms are one on top of the other. That's what he described. Swastikasana, you see that the feet are not facing up; they are inside the knee. So they are tucked inside, and the palms are just dropping on the knees. That is Swastikasana. Prapadasthanam Angulibir Bhadram. He talks about Bhadrasana. I'll show the picture again. Parshnyor Upari Prashtham, where the backside should be. Prishtata Uttano Pado Vajram. And now, what is the variation of this? What is Vajrasana? This Vajrasana is when the feet are stretched out and are rested on the ground. I'll show the pictures. And where the palm should be. Then the Virasana is another asana. Parinitambam Pado, how the leg should be outside and where the hip should be. And lastly, he talks about we call it as the Shavasana, but normally it is not, we didn't see this as an asana or a posture for pranayama, but he says that in some cases, we can use this posture as a preparation for pranayama for certain people. So you don't want to give up on pranayama. If somebody in special cases, you can lie down. So where the spine is, it's not erect in general. When you sit, is erect, but if it is not if you're lying down, it's not erect as it is expected to be. But he says there is a special reason why he created this sutra. There is one technique where we can perform a preparatory asana and some healing also for certain diseased. This posture can be used. So this is the first one is Bhadrasana, where you will see that the person is sitting on the toes. In Vajrasana, the feet are firmly on the ground. And Virasana is one of the feet is on the side, facing the side. That is Virasana. And palms and hands are freely dropping. So that was about the second chapter. We'll get into the third chapter now. अथ संकर्षणव्यानपादः अथ प्राणानायच्छते अशनात् पूर्वं घटिकानन्तरं पश्चात् नमलमूत्राभ्यां निबद्धाभ्यां न स्वेदपमार्जनम् वसन्ते शरदि चाभ्यसेत् नोष्मे न कर्णाक्षिनासादन्तः शिरः शूली ओंकारेण वा सबीजं क्रमेण वृद्धिः 14 वर्षादूर्ध्वं निमीलितचक्षुः बन्धत्रयवित् अन्तराजत्रुणी चिबुकं जालन्धरबन्धः उदरा कुंचन मुडीयानो रेचके गुदद्वारा कुंचनं मूलबन्धो बन्धः इति तृतीय संकर्षण व्यानपादः. We'll quickly get to the third chapter. So now you see another atha here. So the first atha was for what is the eligibility of a person who wants to even get into the knowledge of pranayama. This is first you need to be motivated about having good health. You say that I need to make sure I need to breathe well. These are all the eligibility criteria. Now that you have established that eligibility criteria, you really want to get to pranayama. This is the actual practice. There is another atha now, which is now therefore. Now you are interested, you know a little bit about pranayama. Let's get a little deeper into this now. So thereafter, pranayama's detail. Ashanat purvam, prior to taking any food. This is the first rule. Don't do, on a full stomach. If you have already had food, at least 24 minutes after food is what he's saying. Na malamutrabhyam nibaddhabhyam, which you should never hold your bladder or bubbles while you're practicing pranayama. This is a very important caution. Now, na svedapa marjanam, he says, okay, when even this happens when we practice asana, the way we practice in the KYM tradition, and also pranayama, we sweat. There is a light sweat that comes. what he's saying is, do not wipe this sweat off. This is not the sweat that is to be wiped off. This is because of this is a result that your practice is actually going in the right direction. There's going to be a little amount of sweat. This is an indication that you're doing good. This sweat is an indication. Don't wipe that off. It's a good thing. He makes that point. Vasante Sharadi Chabhyaset must practice during spring and autumn, not during the summer heat. Right now, when it is burning hot outside, or if you're feeling hot, don't do that. There are other pranayamas if you want to do to cool yourself, but that's not what he's talking here. Na karanakshi nasa danta shirashuli, not when you're having eye pain, ear pain, nose, teeth, headaches. These are all very important aspects, places in our body where there is a lot of abundance of prana. If there is something that is bothering us here, this will distract our attention, and it can also actually distract, and it can also create more ailments. That is why when you are having any of these pain, Arvindji, can you mute? For some reason it got unmuted.
Yeah. Pardon me? I wasn't able to hear.
Sorry, your mic is unmuted.
Yes,
you
I'm
could
sorry.
hear the background. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yeah, please take your time. We have no hard constraint on time.
Oh, I see. So I hope our audience is still with me and interested. I am conscious of the fact that we are already up on the hour. But if I think I'll take another 20 minutes or so to complete the whole thing. Okay. So now Omkarena Vasa Bijam. So he talks about a pranayama which is called Sabija, when the pranayama practice is practiced with any mantra. And Om here is just a placeholder. Any mantra that you use while practicing pranayama, that practice is called Sabija Pranayama. And when you can ask, okay, how much should I practice? How long should I do this? How much should I inhale? How long should I exhale? All of that. So during Kramena Vriddhihi, during the practice, these durations must increase gradually, improve gradually. He talks about it later, the exact duration also. The other thing is Chaturdasha Varshad Urdhvam. One of the eligible criteria we see now. What is the meaning of Atha? We talked about Atha as an adhikara or eligibility. Somebody who has attained 14 years of age and more than 14, they are eligible to first and foremost begin the practice of pranayama. If you are a child, if you're under this age, no, not this practices that he's talking about. Clearly, older than that is important. Nimilita chakshuhu, always practice pranayama with eyes closed. So one of the reason is, prana also means indriyas, which is all our sensory organs, is also called prana. Now, what is happening is when we have these senses which are outward, prana is actually going towards those objects outward. The idea of pranayama is to retain the prana inside, not let it go outside. One of the first things to do is to close your eyes so that you block one output for prana. Otherwise, the prana is going through where we are seeing. Then the other one, this we come in pratyahara, right? Every sense we try to actually block. This is the idea of pratyahara. So this again is a placeholder where nimilita chakshuhi is with eyes closed. And it's very interesting that Bannanje himself, he was certainly an enigma. As I said, we don't know much about him fully. He would often say that in his younger years, and he would feel that something is, if he keeps his palms open, something is leaking from his palms, and he would always keep his palms closed. And this is something very mysterious, and which is why this is an idea where what is going from, what was happening was he could sense that some of his prana was going through his palms. And you see in the tradition, and I'll digress a little bit here, and he has said this in many places, the reason why youngsters or anybody do this namaste mudra to anybody senior or older or somebody who is more knowledgeable, is that my prana is actually also going through my palms now, though I don't realize. It is supposed to be going. So what I need to do is, when people are older than me, more knowledgeable and senior than me, I should receive their prana, not give mine to them. So they have knowledge, they have the experience, they have the wisdom. I should receive it. So instead of showing my palms like this or keeping my palms open, we close it. We say that this is the Namaste mudra that we use. So he gave this interpretation that the reason why we do this Namaste mudra is to keep the prana for ourselves. Whereas the person who is receiving this mudra, which is the person who we are doing the namaskara, and you see in the deities also, they do this. You see that their hand, the right hand or left hand, usually they show this. What this means is their prana is coming out to the person who is seeking their blessing. So I just wanted to say that in the context of keeping what prana, why nimilita chakshu, not just chakshu, should keep our senses under control. Bandhatrayavit, with the knowledge of three bandhas. He's going to talk about the bandhas later. And which is the very next sutra is, what is Jalandhara Bandha? Chin tucked inside the collarbone is Jalandhara Bandha, like this. You can see it in the profile. When you contract the stomach during exhale, as you are exhaling, you contract the abdomen and stomach. That is Uddiyana Bandha. Then Gudadwara Kunchanam Mula Bandho Bandha. Contracting the pelvic floor is Mula Bandha. These are the three sutras he leaves us with at the end of Sankarshana Vyanapada. Now we go to the fourth chapter, which now talks about actual technique of pranayama. Now what we have said is, in the previous chapter, you should have the adhikara. You are interested in pranayama, you are practicing some amount of cleanliness, some amount of asana, you're able to sit in the posture, you are over 14 years, you're practicing on an empty stomach, your stomach is not full, your bladders and bowels are not full. So all of these things we have achieved. Now when your knowledge of bandhas, you know what Mula Bandha is, you know what Jalandhara Bandha is, you know what Uddiyana Bandha is. Now get into the fourth chapter, which is all about the technique of the pranayama itself. He talks about few techniques. Again, I will not take too much time, but it's very easy to understand, and this is where we can perhaps see some differences in traditions. Maybe Hatha Yogic texts may have a different name for a particular technique. There might be a different name here, but we'll just go through that. Atha Vasudevo Danapadah Adau Dvabhyam Nishesham Rechanam Dvabhyameva Puranam Amuladharam Rechakapurakau Samam Tribhikshino Rechake Unnata Purake Dvih Panchadashavaram Ityanuloma Vilomaha Vamenaiva Chandranulomaha Suryasyetarena Nasajaye Nadim Shuddhanti Angusthena Pingala Bandhere Chaka Idaya Purakascha Tato Madhyamanamikabhyamida Bandhaha Pingalaya Rechakaha Punastayaiva Purakaha Rechaka Idaya Dvih Panchadashata Atrimshat Nadi Shuddhi Rasotpattir Malabandhavaranam Mamsakhandeshu Shaktivriddhiragnimadhyavaranancha Ashasvasadinivrittirnivrittihi Iti Chaturtho Vasudevo Danapadaha. So now he's talking about a few pranayama techniques. First, he starts by saying Adau Dvabhyam Nishesham Rechanam. Start exhaling completely from both nostrils. So you're not holding anything, you're just exhaling slowly. Then inhale through both nostrils. up to Mooladhara. So now we need to understand a little bit here. He does talk in the text that we have the 7 chakras. Mooladhara is at the base of the spine. What this means is, this is in context of the previous sutra. Dvabhyam eva puranam. Inhale completely. How should you inhale? You should inhale in such a way that you're going to fill your abdomen and the stomach and all the way up to the moola, to your pelvic floor is what is being meant here. It's basically to emphasize that you make a full inhale as much as possible. That is the idea of Amuladharat. Rechaka Purakau Samam. So in the initial practice, keep the duration equal, inhale duration and exhale duration equal. What you need to see is Tribhikshine Rechake. So when you exhale, 3 regions must relax. What are those 3 regions? One is your shoulders, the second one is the chest, and the third one is your abdomen and stomach. This has to be relaxed when you exhale. Tribhikshine Rechake. Unnatah Purake. These 3 regions again must fill or expand during inhale. Your chest has to raise up. Your shoulders will also correspondingly raise. Chest will expand in all 3 dimensions. Then the abdomen will push the downwards. Your stomach will expand. So these 3 regions which relaxes during exhale have to fill Unnata Purake. Now he again in the commentary talks about this as a technique which is given even in the Bhagavad Gita, in many other texts also. This is not uncommon. This is found in many technique of breathing itself. How do you breathe? What is inhale? What is exhale? What should you observe when you inhale and exhale? So this is given, and then the name for Dvih Panchadasha Varam, twice daily, 15 times each. So this technique you follow for twice daily, 15 times each time. It Anuloma Viloma. This technique is called Anuloma Viloma. This is the name that is given. Then the next technique he comes in where the inhale is only through the left side. It is called Chandranuloma. So inhale only through left, exhale through right. Inhale only through left, exhale through right is Chandranuloma. Suryasyatarena. If it is done through right, which is the other side, inhale only through right, exhale through left, and that is called Suryalunoma. This is, so we found now three techniques of pranayama. Now what he says is Nasajaye Nadim Shuddhanti. By doing this is, in fact, he's saying this is just clearing the airways. You've still not gotten to Nadi, control of Nadis or Nadi Shuddhi. We have just made preparation for the next practice in pranayama, which is a little bit more of control, where we use the nostril controls and how to do it. What we saw in the previous 3 techniques was to just clear the airways without any controls. This is to just get the breathing mechanism right. Now he talks about Angushtena Pingala Bandhe Rechaka Idiya after blocking the Pingala, which is the right. So there is a right nadi, which is the Pingala, the left nadi, the Ida, and the middle one is the Sushumna. These are the 3 principal nadis. And again, this is something beyond the scope, not beyond the scope of the text, but it is in time, due to time constraints. I know that there are many seniors, teachers of mine on this webinar. So if people have questions on those, we can take it later. So now after blocking the Pingala with the thumb, exhale through the left. So he's saying now exhale through the left, you block the right. Inhale through the same, which is inhale through the left. Tato madhyama namikabhyam ida bandha. Now after you have inhaled through the left, block the left nostril with the middle and ring finger. So there is a you can do it this way, or there is one technique where we use the 2 fingers, the last 2. What he's saying is use these 2, middle and ring finger. Pingalaya Rechake. Now after, so what we have done is, we have first blocked the right, exhaled through the left, inhaled through the left, blocked the left. Now inhale through the right, which means open the right a little bit and exhale through the right. Sorry, I meant exhale. Exhale through the right, which is the Pingalaya Rechakaha. Punastayaiva Purakaha. Now after you exhale completely to the right, again inhale through the right itself, then close the right with the thumb, exhale through the left. Vif Panchadasha Atrimshat. Do this twice daily, 15 to 30 times each. This he calls as Nadi Shuddhi. And Nadi Shuddhi, what is the benefit of this? Nadi Shuddhi, Rasotpattir, Malabandha Nivaranam, Mamsa Kandeshu, Shaktir Vriddhir, Agnimadya Manda Varanam. So basically, it cleanses the nadis. Not just that, first of all, we have some idea of nadis, but we don't fully understand them. We don't see them. We don't touch or feel them, but it's all there in us. But how do we know what other benefits are there? Well, you will probably feel your body is more nourished if you practice this twice daily, 30 times, as he says, as the texts say, and it's not the him saying, all his work is based on what various texts say. You will be constipation free, muscle strength will be there, and it's also a cure for weak appetite. You will eat well, you will eat whenever you eat, you will also digest well. These are the benefits of Nadi Shuddhi. In addition, bronchial asthma, chronic asthma, and related diseases also heal because of this technique of Nadi Shuddhi. Now it is the fifth chapter. We'll come to the fifth chapter, which is the last chapter. अथ नारायण समान पादः अथ कुम्भकः समन्त्रः सगर्भः सबीजो वा अमन्त्रो गर्भो निर्बीजो वा द्वाभ्यां रेचनं पूरणं च कुम्भके जालन्धरमूलबन्धौ उडीयानेन वामेन रेचनं दक्षिणेन वाम आदशत आविंशतेः स कुम्भकोऽनुलोम विलोम इति राजयक्ष्मादिहृदयम् अथ सुखपूरकः वामेन रेचकपूरकौ ततोऽनुकुम्भकं दक्षिणेन पुनरनुवामेन रेचनादेकः मधुमेहादिनिवारी दक्षिणेनैव सूर्यभेदः शीतादिनिवारी इतरेण चन्द्रस्य विशेषतः स्त्रीणां योनिदाहादिहृत् अथ शववत्स्वाप उत्तानः द्वाभ्यां रेचको बाह्यः कुम्भकश्च पुनः स्फुरकरेचकौ पुनर्बाह्यः आषाढादश अथान्तर्बाह्यं द्वाभ्यां रेचकः बन्धत्रयेण बाह्यकुम्भकः द्वाभ्यां पूरकः बन्धद्वयेनान्तः पुनर्द्वाभ्यां रेचको बाह्यश्च एवं षडष्टवा वीर्यदोषस्वप्नस्खलनादिनिवारी अपचनादीनां च दक्षिणतो रेचनम् अशुद्धासृद्धि दक्षिणे वामतः पूरणम् इति कुम्भकमाचरेत् द्विद्विगुणम् दक्षिणेनैव रेचनम् प्राणः प्रीणाति इति पंचमो नारायण समानपादः. Let's get back. So again, we see atha here. What is this atha? This again talks about eligibility. What is the eligibility? Well, we have been practicing pranayama for some time. We are interested in continuing the practice. We have, sort of come to some level of proficiency where we can do the holds. Now, therefore, understand what the Kumbhaka pranayama is. So this atha, as I said, is carried through the text in various, sections as well, or chapters. depending on eligibility. So I hope you get this idea of what this word atha means when we see in any text or a sutra text what atha means. It's a very loaded meaning. So that it means eligibility, but now you're seeing the layers or shades of what eligibility means as we continue. So Artha Kumbhakaha, this is a type of pranayama where there is a hold. Samantraha Sagarbha Sabhijova. With the mantras, it is Sagarbha or Sabija. It is called Sagarbha or Sabija. If you do without mantras, it is Agarbha or Abija. He also talks about in the text what mantras to use. Could be any mantra you've been initiated. Ashtakshara, Narayana Ashtakshara is one. We can also do Gayatri mantra itself as, in the various stages of Kumbhaka Pranayama. So there are many mantras that can be used. Now the technique comes. Dvabhyam Rechanam Puranam Cha. Exhale from both and inhale from both. Kumbhake Jalandhara Moola Bandhav. Now in Kumbhaka, Jalandhara Bandha and Moola Bandha is a must. So you need to keep the chin tucked. And as I said, the pelvic floor also contracted. That is the Moola Bandha. So whenever we are performing a Kumbhaka, these two bandhas are very important. We'll see about the third bandha later. So these two, they are a must. Now, why that is a must? He talks in this thing saying that what we are trying to do in pranayama is not just we are trying to retain that idea of that prana, that shakti, that energy as much within us as possible. Now we need to figure out where the leakage of prana could happen. One, we already said close your eyes so that you're not distracted. When your eyes are open, your attention is going to something. When attention flows to something, prana is also flowing out. So that's the idea. So we kept some of our senses under control, but not just that, there could be other points within our body where the prana could not be retained. The idea of Kumbhaka is to retain the prana. Kumbhaka means a pot. So it has to be, prana has to be filling like we fill water in a pot. So you can't have leak somewhere. Now that is the idea behind Jalandhara Bandha and Moola Bandha. Udyanena Vamena Rechanam Dakshine. Now, having done this inhale and exhale, inhale from both, now you have held. Now exhale with Udyana Bandha either from left or the right nostril. What is he saying? As you exhale, you contract the stomach and the abdomen, and that is the Udyana Bandha we talked about, the technique he had, or at least the idea I had introduced in the previous chapter. How many times should we do it? Adashata avimshtihi, 10 or 20 times. This is Sakumbhaka Anuloma Viloma Pranayama. Sakumbhako Anuloma Viloma, the name for this. What is the benefit? Raja Yakshmadi Hridayam. So this cures tuberculosis, a very deadly disease, and other related ailments which are related to that family of diseases. So this cures that disease. And then in the next sutra, he now comes to another technique, which is Atha Sukha Purakaha. Now inhale freely, Sukha Puraka. This is Sukha Puraka Pranayama. What it is from the left exhale, you exhale completely, then inhale, then hold. Thereafter, exhale from the right, inhale, and then hold. Exhale from the left. This is one round. Vamena Rechaka Purakau, Tato Anukumbhakam, Dakshinena Punaranu, Vamena Rechanad Ekaha. This cycles one cycle. What is the benefit of this? It says Madhumehadi Nivari. Cure for diabetes and any urinary diseases is in this technique, which is 5, 10 and 5, 10 Sukhapuraka Pranayama, which was described in 5.11. This is the technique for cure of diabetes, urinary diseases. That is what is 5.12. Dakshinena iva Surya Bedaha. If Surya Beda Pranayama is from the right, so if you only do this from the right, which is inhale right, and I think also exhale right, then it is Surya Bheda. What this is, the benefit is it cures from cold and related ailments. Now, what ancients have captured is there was very few reasons why you would actually go to somebody, a Vaidya or an Ayurveda or a doctor back in the ancient time. You would solve it yourself. Now you do these techniques, or if you're doing it regularly, perhaps you will even prevent getting these diseases or these ailments in the first place. But if it does come, apply these, and then you don't need to visit somebody to take a pill or to take a medicine or something. So this is why the ancients had techniques related to not just spiritual practice but also for good long life, as we saw in the introduction itself. Itarena chandrasya. This is through the other is chandra bedana. This is to the left. Now chandra bedana, he says, especially for women, visheshata strinam yoni dahadikrit, especially in women, uterus related ailments can be cured, can be ameliorated because of the chandra bedana. Now, atha shavavat swapa uttanaha. Now we talked about, there was one posture he talked about in the asana where there is a lying down, there is one pranayama technique you can do. Now he talks about that. Now lie down like a corpse. Tvabhyam rechako bahya kumbhakascha. Exhale from both and then hold. Exhale from both nostrils and hold after exhale. Punah puraka rechako punar bahyaha. Again, inhale from both, exhale, and then hold. So basically, this is hold after exhale. You're doing full inhales and then hold, just holding after exhale for some time, release, and then inhale. Now, how many times you should do it? 6 to 10 times. This is called Bahya Kumbhaka, which is Bahya Kumbhaka is hold after exhale. Athantar Bahyam. Now, Antar and Bahya Kumbhaka. We have introduced, you see that he did not introduce the hold after inhale to begin with. They introduced hold after exhale first. Now they are introducing hold after inhale after having done the hold after exhale. This is again in line with the KYM tradition, where Sri Krishnamacharya always said we should start with hold after inhale for any practice. If you're using holds, start with the practice of hold after exhale first. It is easier, less risky. Then as we develop proficiency, we go to holds after inhale, because inhale hold are more complicated. They need to be done with caution. So how it is done? Exhale from both, dvabhyam rechakaha, bandhatrayena bahya kumbhakaha. Now hold after exhale with all three bandhas. As you have exhaled, hold in all three bandhas. Dvabhyam purakascha, inhale through both. Bandhadvayena antaha. Now, after you inhale, you cannot hold Uddiyana Bandha. Uddiyana Bandha is when you exhale, you contract, you're contracting the stomach and abdomen. Obviously, you cannot do Uddiyana Bandha when you have inhaled. When you hold, so that is why it's saying only two bandhas. What are the two bandhas? Mula Bandha and Jalandhara Bandha. Those are the two bandhas. Hold after, when you do hold after inhale, it is with the two bandhas. Punardvabhyam rechako bahyascha. Thereafter exhale and again bahya kumbhaka. So hold after exhale now and then again hold after exhale. Like this 6 or 8 times. Evam shadashtava virya dosha swapna skhala nadi nivari. So this is related to issues with fertility and so on, sleep disorders, all of that. That is why this particular technique has been given. Apachanadinamcha cures indigestion and related ailments also. This particular technique. Now we are coming to the last section. There is one other technique he talks about. Dakshinato rechanam, exhale from the right. And then he says that ashuddhisraghi dakshine. Why we are exhaling from the right? Because impure blood is in the right side after all. It says in the circulatory system, in the heart, the impure blood is at the right side. The pure blood, from the lungs, it comes into the left, and then it comes out. So Vamatah Puranam, inhale from the left. Hridik Kumbhakam Achare. Establish, hold Kumbhaka in the heart space. So you have inhaled, and now you have to hold. And in the commentary, he talks about what does this heart space mean? What is it that you are trying to do here? So the idea is, we talked about the Pingala Nadi and the Ida Nadi. The heart space here is referring to the Sushumna Nadi. Make sure that the prana flows into the Sushumna, which is in the center, starts from the Muladhara Chakra all the way to Brahmarandra. It goes up on the spine. And then he says that is in the central plane. And in that Sushumna Nadi, hold, which is, what are you holding? You have inhaled. You push the prana in that. I mean, you're not actively doing, you think about it, it will happen over time. That's what the practitioners say. And in that space, you think. When you're holding after inhale, you think of what? You think of your deities, your personal deities. And, as per this tradition of Vishnu or Vayu, it could be any deity for that matter. So you can think, and that is the dhyana itself. It is actually dhyana itself. Dvidvigunam. Basically, when you are advanced, what the count is, you have to exhale for, if you exhale for X counts, you inhale for twice that, and hold after inhale for twice that, which is, if you exhale for, let's say, 8 seconds exhale, you inhale 16 seconds. The inhale following that exhale should be 16, and then the hold after inhale should be double that, which is 32. No, that is what this means. Double it. There is a ratio that is given. In fact, they say that 16 counts is the minimum exhale when you're advanced practice. What is the count itself? The count itself is a blink of an eye, or when we say the duration to say is 1 count. Of like that, 16 counts is exhale. 16 times 2 of that is 32 is inhale. And then, twice that, 64 is the hold after inhale. Dvidvigunam. Then exhale through the right. Dakshinena iva rechana. Prana prinati. This ends the text and the sutras with prana will be pleased. And essentially, this completes the sutra and the discussion of prana sutras. I'm happy to open up and maybe have my teachers also comment, or Sri Arvindji, over to you.
Well, with this prayer that prana be pleased, we request all participants, all attendees, in gratitude to relive to the extent we can the chant of the Prana Sutra that we heard, and switch on our videos for a moment, please, so that we can take a group picture of our gathering today. And during this time, we can collect any questions that we may have, collect our thoughts on the Aniruddha Pranapada, Pradyumna Apanapada, Sankarshana Vyanapada, Vasudeva Udanapada, and Narayana Samanapada. Let's have a picture taken. And once we have our questions ready, you may please raise your hand. We can go one by one. You may also post in the chat box, and we request that please you can make your observations preceding your questions brief, and in keeping with the textual emphasis, philosophical orientation of this series. We request that you hold questions related to very application-oriented practice elements. Any additional questions you may also share in webinar@kym.org in the chat box. Yeah, thank you. We may continue. There are some requests for questions in the chat box. Yogacharya Dr. B. Soundaram, could you please unmute, turn on video and ask your question, please?
Thank you for giving a very wonderful lecture. Thank you, Arvindji. My question is, you are giving the ratio for the inhalation and retention, then exhalation, then holding the breath outside. These 4 phases are there normally. And when you are saying, I was slightly, I don't know whether I have not understood it properly. There is one scripture, classic treatise in Tamil, Tirumandiram. It speaks about this ratio. That is, inhalation is 8 means your retention is 64 and your exhalation is 32.
Mhm.
If I say in another form,
Got it.
4, then 16 internal retention, then 8 is the so like that only we practice. Did you say in the same way, or was it entirely?
No, it is different. It is the inverse, where the exhale is short.
Okay.
Inhale is twice the count of exhale, and the hold after inhale is twice the count of the inhale itself.
Okay.
So we have seen this in dhyana texts also, and this is particularly, pranayama is considered as a form of dhyana itself. Now, what to accentuate that idea is the hold after inhale is actually where it is in fact hardest to do hold after inhale, right? It's very hard. Now, that is the form of meditation according to many of the texts, and which is why this technique, I think, is he talks about towards the end a practice of pranayama, which is dhyana itself. And he says that in the commentary, or either it is for dhyana itself or it is a preparation for dhyana. In either case, the ratio is given as 2 for exhale, twice that is inhale after exhale, twice that is hold after inhale. And I know this ratio is there in our KYM tradition also in the same way. Right, madam? I know there are people here. Nitya, madam?
Thank you.
I'm probably she's unavailable at this moment, but
okay,
we can continue this offline.
Sounds good.
Christopher Fernandez ji, could you please ask your question?
Yes, please.
Yeah. A very good morning, sir. An excellent explanation, very crisp, very clear. Thank you very much. It was an amazing thing. I have one personal question, sir.
Yes.
After that, what? When basically there are two types of breathing. One is the forced breathing. When I do a push-up, when I do a malkham, there the body breathes. Then there is, while talking, there's a breathing happening. While eating, there's a breathing happening. Now, as a devotee, as a practitioner, my humble question to you is, sir, I have been doing all this 24/7, both the nostrils are open, I'm constantly in that particular zone. Now what? Basically, as you said, it goes up into the central channel, holds there, pretty long, everything is happening. After that, what? That's what my personal question.
Yeah, a very loaded question. I think there are two things we can relate to this, which is first is we should be feeling good about ourselves because of all this. We're not doing this practice 24/7. Even for a small amount of time that we devote to doing the actual practices, the effect carries through the rest of the day. And perhaps if it wanes down sometime during the day, you practice again, which is why they're given twice a day. It's certainly bound to wane down because we are drawn into the affairs of the world. Mind is occupied with so many conflicts and so on. So prana is dissipating. Now we have to again do this practice to fill prana and hold it, which is why they said twice daily. One thing we should see is if we are doing it consistently, regularly, we are doing it in the right way. One is we should have good amount of energy throughout the day without having to seek, various other sources, whether it is snacking or whether it is, beverages and so on and so forth. We should always have that good amount of energy because we are doing this practice. That is one perhaps we can observe. The second thing is what next after that is again, even you may not be prone to catching even simple colds and coughs and so on. That also is a reflection of that. Yes, just by doing this, if nothing else, this itself is a benefit. What next is, well, I'm not falling sick often as I used to, or I'm not falling sick as somebody else is, and so on. That itself is a great result of benefit. The third one is the most important one, perhaps, is I now have this energy. I feel positive. I have this thing with me. What can I do more? So with the pleasant mind, with the positivity that we have surrounded ourselves inside us, we can probably do two things. One, we can share that with others in whatever work we do, wherever we work, in whatever thing that we do, we can bring that kind of a positivity, the source of which for us is the practice itself that we do, right? Others need not know, but we know that where we are getting this positivity and source from. The other dimension of this is with this, we can probably continue more deeper studies and more, things that interest us. As Bannanje says, I mean, he spent 80 years of his life in the depths and that he went into. It is unfathomable. We are like, as I said, we are like that ant at the bottom of that mountain. So let's use this energy. Let's try to climb up that mountain and see what else is there that we can cover. So perhaps we can do that also. Is my response to your question. Hope it addresses it.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, like they talk about Kundalini is the next step. So can you guide me or refer me any books?
The KYM tradition has ideas about it. In fact, even in this whole text, he did not talk about Kundalini.
Yeah,
Even in Krishnamacharya tradition, Krishnamacharya also was very careful. He does not use that word Kundalini. There are two ideas here. One is it is thought of as a blocking. It's a blockage. Kundalini is a
right.
blockage. Once you're able to unblock it, if the prana is freely going in the body and in the sushumna, then it means your Kundalini is awakened and you're fine already, right? It is not a specific thing to be sought after or going after, but that is I see this in both this tradition, what he's saying and what Krishnamacharya is saying. They don't talk Kundalini as a specific end game or a goal to practice. It is happening along the way in both traditions. And I see this again, remarkable coincidence. The emphasis is on actually dhyana, which is you get to the meditation, whatever it is that you want to meditate on. It's something which is auspicious, positive, and so on. Both traditions say Kumbhaka is the means to get there. And if you are able to do these holds after inhale and so on, you can incorporate the meditation in the practice itself, or after this practice, then get to your whatever meditation that you've been taught or you're comfortable with. But Kundalini per se is not treated as a goal I see in both in this text and the tradition in KYM.
Thank you, sir.
Perhaps we can conclude with a couple of short questions which are in the chat box. I'll just read both of them. One of them is about the counts of Sukha Puraka, if any that are recommended. And the second is about the sources to which the Prana Sutras can be traced. We know it's an original work of Bannanje Govindacharya, Shripanji Govindacharya. But any inspirations that have been highlighted, if you could talk about them, that would be great.
Sure. So I think, in the text, he did not give about the Sukha Puraka, the count for that. What I would infer is, he's using these very sparingly. He's not making us do many times. We have seen some simple pranayamas. He says do it 15 or 30 times, 10 to 20 times. But this Sukha Puraka, I would say, is then he talks about the pranayama. After that, he's only saying 6 to 10 times. So I think he's using these counts very sparingly. If I were to probably guess, he doesn't give it in the text, but I would probably say 10 to 20 on the maximum side, maybe 10 times. Again, this is quite involved. You have to have the inhale from left, exhale from left, inhale, then hold, then exhale from the right, then hold. So there is, it's quite involved. I would say, I think even 10 is probably a good number, because he uses this 6 to 10 times in another later one, 5.20. He uses 6 to 10 times. I would probably say we can keep it at 6 to 10 times itself.
There's this other question on sources cited or traced.
Sources cited. Yeah. So there are a few things. He doesn't cite specifically any source. He says that this is something. In one place, he says that there is Shvetashvatara Upanishad had some ideas he had taken from them. Vayu Purana had some. He just sparingly mentions them. So he does not actually use any one text to compose these Prana Sutras. It is his knowledge of the rich and vast Shastra knowledge that he had. He has used that, and this is something he has just created. So he doesn't give exact source to. He says it in the commentary, saying this idea is we see in Bhagavad Gita. This idea we see in this Upanishad, but the sutra itself is not saying this is coming from a particular underlying source.
With permission, can we have just one question before we
Yes.
conclude? Sunil Kumar ji, Sunil K ji has raised his hand. Could you please unmute and ask your question, please?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, very insightful presentation. My question was, can we take longevity as a corollary from this? Is there any, implication for longevity? Like there's this mythical tale of Tailang Swami who lived for a long time in Varanasi because of yogic practices, and recently a yogacharya, uh, in Varanasi, lived for approximately 129 years. And secondly, we have accounts of a Pallava prince who apparently was Bodhidharma, who went from the south to China and founded the Shaolin school. So, is the Chinese concept of chi similar, analogous to prana, or I know I'm digressing a little from the basic text, but yeah, those were my questions. Thank you, Arvindji.
Thank you for the question. I am not familiar with the idea of chi, so I mean that might be out of depth here or out of even acquaintance to even comment on that. Perhaps it is if you're describing the characteristics the way it is, it perhaps the answer is yes. But I think maybe there are better people to answer whether it exactly corresponds to that idea in the Chinese tradition. But as far as the first part of the question, longevity, 100%. This is 100% correlated to longevity. And I think, so in the conference paper, I had this idea, but we did not talk about it. Maybe let me just quickly mention it, which is the Bannanje has always said that there are two concepts of time. One is the clock, the clock that we are running because of the cycle around the sun's rotation on its own axis, because of which we experience day and night. That is one clock. Now, what we say is it happened. So we are counting our own age. How old are you? I am counting the number of days since I was born based on the circle of the rotation of the earth on its own axis, and the counting the days and nights. And he says this is one aspect of time. Yes, time has passed since the time whatever you were born. This is the time it's there. These are the number of rotations that have happened, so hence you are these many years old. We say that ordinarily also, but he has always said, and this is we have seen this, and I'll explain it a little bit, is that is not the only concept of time. What Bannanje is saying is, once we are able to breathe, let's say you take normal average breath of about 15 breaths per minute, which corresponds to basically the 24 hours, which is basically you're going to get 21,600 breaths sort of per day, right? Now, if you're breathing at 4 seconds inhale and 4 seconds exhale, and at 15 breaths per minute, that exactly corresponds to one solar day, which is 1 day and night, which is 24 hours. Suppose if you were to breathe in such a way, because of pranayama, your inhale and exhale are not the 4 seconds, it is, let's say it is 8. Now you just doubled it, right? What then happens is, it takes, in the 1 day that you have 21,600, you are only, breaths, you have, for the 24 hours, you have only used half of the number of breaths compared to your previous self, where you are breathing 15 breaths per minute. Now you have brought it down to, let's say, 7.5 breaths per minute. So for you to get 1 day of your body, aging of your body, you need to spend 2 solar days. You see the idea here? So once you have spent 21,600 breaths, which is, it takes 48 hours for you to do, because you've halved your, the breath per minute. Increase your number of seconds that you inhale or exhale. You have halved the total number of breaths you take per day. Hence, your internal clock, the aging of your body internally, is now out of sync with the solar, the rise and fall of the sun, right? This is very clearly related to longevity. How we measure our longevity is either you measure yourself internally and you say, or if you measure it through the external time, you can certainly say that longevity as per external time can be controlled by retaining more prana, taking fewer breaths per day, which is why we will say when you take 21,600 breaths, that is one day for the body internally. It could be either 2 days outside, or if you're doing fast breathing, you could be spending half of it, which is you will be spending more number of breaths in a given day itself, which means you are aging much faster. Both is possible.
Thank you, Ramji. Thank you, one and all. I would, on behalf of the KYM and also all the attendees here, it's my pleasure to offer our gratitude today for being so enriched. I think enriched is the word because as Ramji began, Iruvina Arivu Sampattu, awareness of what we have is wealth. And we began by sharing the wealth, the monumental contributions of Sri Bannanje Govindacharya, and offered this vision so generously offered by Sri Bannanje Govindacharya of Uttama Prana and Madhyama Prana, both in the form of the Sutra, Prana Sutra, the chanting of which was doubly enriching in its own right. We have so many grateful comments in the chat box as well. And besides the sutras themselves, even some of what seemed like these footnote style comments also had sutra-like quality in their own right. Like life without pranayama is like life without prana. Until maturity, you follow the practice. Upon maturity, the practice follows you. And we have all been left with guidance that will stay with us during practice. If it is a time when achieving control seems like a struggle, be like this mahout with the elephant. As we move on, be like this lover cajoling a beloved. And most importantly, when we have reached the stage where we attempt dhyana, have this attitude of total reverence and surrender. So we thank Ramji for this wonderful exposition of the Prana Sutra of Bannanje Govindacharya. And thank everyone present for being generous with your time and joining us this Saturday morning. We hope that you will join us next week as well for the concluding portion of this, for the concluding lecture in this series on prana as the life breath of sadhana. This will be on prana and pranayama in the Itihasa Purana literature. We saw the sutra literature today, and we are rich with all these prompts within us, as Ramji himself said. The stream of prana, of Purana and Itihasa is what we will hear next time from Dr. Ananda Venkata Subramaniam. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. And Arvindji, if I can close with the closing chant,
please,
that would be
please.
appropriate. कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा अनुसृतस्वभावम् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि सर्वं श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु हरिः ओम्. Thank you.